The winter I first heard about the Glocester Ghoul, Rhode Island, was freezing hotter than usual. Not beautiful winter, not postcard winter, the kind that makes old New England towns feel abandoned after dark. Road salt piling against sidewalks, dead trees clawing at power lines, snowbanks along empty roads turning gray from weeks of storms and exhaust. I had driven into the town of Glocester late at night after taking a freelance photography assignment nobody else wanted, documenting isolated colonial cemeteries buried deep in the woods for a regional history archive. At the time, it sounded easy money. Quiet roads, empty landscapes, old New England atmosphere. I had no idea the town carried stories people still refused to discuss properly after sunset. The locals didn't call it a monster. That came later online. Older residents avoided naming it directly at all. They moved just to say things like, "Don't stop on back roads if you think something crossed in front of you," or "If the woods go silent near the old farms, keep driving." The first person who mentioned it seriously was an old gas station worker near Sheepashat Road. I remember him glancing at my camera equipment and asking what I was photographing so far out at night. I told him old burial grounds. His expression changed immediately. Not dramatic fear, recognition. Like I had accidentally stepped into a conversation that already existed long before I arrived. Then he asked me something strange. "You staying out after midnight?" I laughed a little and said, "Probably." The man didn't smile back. Instead, he leaned closer over the counter and lowered his voice almost instinctively. "If you see something low to the ground near the snowbanks, don't stop to figure out what it is." That was the first time I heard the phrase, the Glocester Ghoul. At first I assumed it was just another local cryptid story, small town folklore inflated online into something theatrical. But then he described it. Hairless, gray skin stretched too tightly over bone, long arms, eyes reflecting white in headlights, and movement that didn't look human or animal once it started running. The old man claimed people had seen it near abandoned farms and wooded roads for decades, especially during harsh winters, always at night, always low to the ground at first. And according to him, the worst mistake anyone could make was stopping their vehicle after seeing it cross the road, because if you stopped, it stopped too. I remember leaving the gas station feeling amused more than unsettled. New England towns are full of stories like that, places old enough to fear to become part of local identity. But about an hour later, while driving through a heavily wooded road outside town, I saw something moving beside the snowbanks. At first, I thought it was a deer struggling through deep snow. Then my headlights caught it properly, and I realized immediately that no deer had arms like that. The thing froze in place the moment the light touched it, low to the ground, thin, pale gray skin stretched tightly over a body that looked almost starved, and its eyes, God. Its eyes reflected back pure white against the darkness, not glowing, reflecting, like dead winter light trapped inside something alive. For a moment, neither of us moved. The woods around the road had gone completely silent, no wind, no branches shifting, nothing. Then the thing slowly turned its head toward me, and I understood instantly why the locals warned people not to stop. Because the moment it looked at me, it felt less like seeing an animal and more like interrupting something that had already been watching the road long before I arrived. I should have kept driving. That's the part I replay in my head more than anything else. Because for a few seconds after the headlights caught it beside the snowbank, I still had a chance to leave the moment behind. The road ahead was open, the engine was running. Nothing was stopping me except curiosity. And curiosity has ruined more people in old American towns than fear ever has. The thing remained crouched beside the road, half hidden where dirty snow met the tree line. Its body looked almost unfinished in the headlights, too thin in some places, too long in others, like proportions kept shifting depending on where my eyes focused. At first glance, it resembled a starving animal, but the longer I looked, the more human details began surfacing where they shouldn't have existed. Shoulders, elbows, hands. God, the hands. Long, pale fingers pressed into the snow like it wasn't bothered by the cold at all. I remember tightening my grip on the steering wheel as the silence around the road deepened unnaturally. Even inside the truck, I could feel it. That heavy New England silence old forests sometimes develop during winter storms, the kind that makes the woods feel less empty and more attentive. Then the thing stood up slightly, not fully upright, just enough for me to realize it was larger than I first thought. Its joints moved wrong, not broken, wrong, like something had studied the mechanics of movement without fully understanding how living creatures were supposed to distribute weight. And the eyes never left me. Pure white reflections trapped in the headlights, no emotion, no aggression, only awareness. Then it did something that chilled me harder than if it had charged the truck. It tilted its head slowly, almost curiously, like it recognized that I was still there when most people would have driven away already. I should have left then. Instead, against every instinct I had, I reached for the camera beside me. The moment my hand touched it, the thing moved, fast, not toward me, across the road. One sudden blur of pale motion streaking through the headlights low to the ground before vanishing into the trees on the opposite side. I slammed my foot on the brake instinctively even though it was already gone. And that's when I realized the silence in the woods hadn't returned, because something was still there, watching from deeper in the trees now. I could feel it. The camera trembled in my hands while I stared into the forest beyond the snowbanks. Nothing visible, only darkness between bare winter branches. Then came the sound. A single soft knock against the underside of the truck, not from outside the road, directly beneath me. My blood went cold instantly. Another knock followed, slow, deliberate, like something under the vehicle was testing the metal with its knuckles. I stopped breathing. The old gas station worker's warning echoed through my head again. If you stop, it stops too. Then a third knock hit beneath the floorboards, and something underneath the truck began slowly dragging itself from one side to the other. The dragging beneath the truck moved slowly at first, not scraping, not clawing, sliding, like something thin and heavy was pulling itself across packed snow and ice directly underneath me. I sat completely frozen behind the steering wheel, staring through the windshield into the trees while every instinct in my body screamed the same thing. Do not get out. The sound passed beneath the driver's side, then stopped. Absolute silence flooded the road again. No wind, no engine noise beyond the low idle. Even the forest itself felt like it was holding its breath. I remember looking down instinctively toward the floorboard, as though I could somehow see through the metal beneath my boots. Nothing moved. but I could feel presence now in a way that had nothing to do with sight. Something was directly under me, waiting. Then came another knock, this time from beneath the passenger side door. 3 slow taps, human rhythm. That realization made my stomach tighten harder than anything else so far, because animals don't knock. And whatever this thing was, it clearly understood something about people. The camera still sat in my lap, trembling in my hands. Part of me wanted proof, evidence, something solid enough to force reality back into recognizable shape. But another part of me already understood the dangerous truth about places like this. Some things become more real the moment you try documenting them. Then the truck shifted slightly, not enough to rock violently. Just a faint change in weight distribution, like something had placed a hand against the frame and leaned closer. My breath fogged the windshield while I stared ahead into the dark trees. And that's when I saw movement again, farther back among the woods, white reflections between branches, eyes, but too high now. The thing wasn't crouched anymore, it was standing deeper in the forest, watching me from between the trees. And even at that distance, I could tell something about its body looked fundamentally wrong against the natural geometry of the woods. Too narrow, too elongated, like its limbs bent in ways the eye struggled to process cleanly in low light. Then the truck roof creaked slowly above me. My entire body locked up. Another slow creak followed. Wait. Something was on the top of the vehicle now. The sound moved carefully from the back toward the center of the roof. Light, controlled, deliberate enough that it almost felt worse than if it had been heavy, because it meant the thing understood stealth. I couldn't breathe properly anymore. Snow continued drifting past the windshield while the roof flexed faintly overhead. Then all movement stopped again, complete stillness, and in that silence I heard something I still can't fully explain. Breathing. Not outside the truck, inside the cabin with me. Soft, wet, slowly inhaling somewhere behind my seat. At first I thought the sound had to be my imagination. Fear does strange things inside confined spaces. It sharpens some senses while distorting others, and sitting alone on an empty Rhode Island back road at night with something crawling across your truck is exactly the kind of situation where the human mind begins manufacturing horrors to fill silence. That's what I tried telling myself, until the breathing came again, closer this time. Slow inhale, wet exhale, not loud, but unmistakably inside the cab. I stopped moving completely. Even my eyes felt locked forward against the windshield, because some ancient survival instinct deep inside me had already reached a terrifying conclusion. If you turn around too fast, you might confirm something your brain is still trying to protect you from seeing. The roof creaked softly again overhead, a faint shifting of weight, then silence returned. Only the breathing remained. I could smell something now too, cold rot, not decay exactly. More like wet earth dug up from beneath frozen ground. My hands tightened painfully around the steering wheel while I stared at the fog windshield ahead. And that's when I noticed something changing in the rearview mirror. At first it looked like condensation spreading across the back window, and the shape thickened, a pale blur, slow rising into view from the darkness behind the seats. My pulse slammed so hard I could hear it. The breathing stopped. The figure in the mirror continued lifting upward inch by inch until 2 white reflective eyes appeared in the glass, watching me. not from outside the truck, from the back seat. Every muscle in my body locked instantly. The thing behind me didn't fully resemble what I'd seen near the snowbanks anymore. Up close, it looked thinner, more skeletal. Its skin stretched tightly across sharp facial angles that almost looked human until you focused long enough to realize the proportions were subtly wrong. Too narrow, too elongated, like a face remembered imperfectly by something that didn't understand people completely. Its mouth hung slightly open, not snarling, breathing, and its eyes reflected the dashboard light with the same dead winter whiteness I'd seen in the forest. I wanted to run. I wanted to scream. But terror had already passed beyond panic into something colder, stillness. Because deep down, I understood something horrifying. The thing had entered the truck without opening a door. Then it tilted its head slightly while watching me through the mirror, exactly the same way I had outside beside the road. Recognition, curiosity, almost intelligence, and then, very slowly, one of its long, pale hands rose into view beside my shoulder, not touching me, hovering inches away. The fingers were too long by several joints, trembling slightly like something unused to holding still for this long. Then the hand lowered gently onto the central console behind me, carefully, deliberately, like it was testing whether I understood it was no longer outside the vehicle anymore. The hand stayed on the central console beside me, thin, pale, almost human in structure until your eyes followed the fingers long enough to realize they bent at too many points. I couldn't stop staring at them. The skin looked stretched tight over sharp joints, colorless like flesh left too long beneath winter water. Tiny flakes of melting snow dripped from the fingertips onto the console without the thing seeming to notice, and the smell inside the truck kept getting worse. Cold soil, wet fur, the scent of something that belonged underground instead of breathing beside me. I still hadn't turned around fully. I was watching it mostly through the rearview mirror because some instinct deep inside me understood direct eye contact would change the situation in ways I wasn't ready for. The breathing behind me slowed, calm, controlled, like the creature had all the time in the world. Outside, snow drifted silently across the empty Rhode Island road. The forest beyond the headlights looked frozen in place, every bare tree branch standing perfectly still against the darkness. No passing cars, no distant lights, nothing. It felt less like being stranded on a road and more like the entire world outside the truck had stopped progressing. Then the thing behind me moved slightly closer. I heard the fabric of the back seat compress softly beneath its weight. The long fingers on the console twitched once, and then I heard something that made my blood go cold harder than anything else so far. A voice, not words at first, more like damaged imitation. A strained sound deep in its throat, trying to shape itself into human speech. I squeezed my eyes shut for half a second, hoping desperately that exhaustion or fear had finally broken my perception completely. Then it tried again. This time I understood the sound, barely, but enough. Cold. The word came out uneven, breathy, wrong in pronunciation, like language itself heard its mouth to reproduce. Every muscle in my body tightened instantly, because nothing about this encounter had prepared me for intelligence. Animal fear is manageable, you understand the rules, but the moment something unknown begins trying to communicate, the mind loses every safe category it depends on. I finally forced myself to glance slightly over my shoulder, and I wish I hadn't. The ghoul sat hunched in the back seat, impossibly close now, its limbs folded awkwardly against itself, like they were never designed for enclosed spaces. Its skin looked almost translucent beneath the dim dashboard glow, stretched so tightly over its skull that I could see dark veins beneath the surface, and the eyes, those horrible white reflective eyes, remained locked on me without blinking. But what terrified me most wasn't the appearance anymore, it was the expression, because there was thought behind it now, not animal instinct, observation, study, like it was learning from my reaction in real time. Then the thing leaned slightly forward, its face moving closer toward the space beside my ear, and in that same damaged voice, barely louder than breath, it whispered, "You stopped." You stopped. Those words didn't feel like speech. They felt like something being carefully assembled inside the air between us, as if the ghoul was learning how sound should behave rather than actually using language. My throat went dry instantly. I didn't respond. I couldn't, because the moment it spoke, the situation stopped being about survival instincts and became something far more disturbing: communication. The creature leaned back slightly after saying it, as if waiting for my reaction, watching, measuring, not in a chaotic animal way, but in a structured, patient way, like it expected me to continue the pattern, and that was the part I couldn't shake. It wasn't just reacting to fear, it was reacting to behavior. Outside, the snow continued drifting past the windshield in slow motion. The road ahead remained empty, swallowed by the black trees of rural Rhode Island, somewhere deep within Glocester. But inside the truck, everything felt compressed, smaller, tighter, like the space itself was adjusting to accommodate the thing behind me. The ghoul shifted again, this time closer to my right shoulder. I could feel its presence without needing to look fully. Heat that didn't belong to any living body, I understood, a damp pressure in the air, like the interior of the truck had slowly become part of a different environment entirely. Then it spoke again, 2 words this time, not perfect, not natural, but clearer than before. "You wait." My fingers tightened on the steering wheel so hard I felt pain in my knuckles. It wasn't repeating random sounds anymore, it was building structure, trying sentences, trying meaning. And somehow worse than that, it was linking meaning to me. As if I wasn't just a witness anymore, I was part of its learning process. The rear view mirror trembled slightly, not from vibration, from something shifting its weight too close to it. I forced myself to look into it again, slowly, carefully, and I saw the ghoul's face closer than before, angled in a way that suggested it was now studying both my reflection and my real body simultaneously. Its eyes didn't blink, but they tracked every micro movement, every breath, every hesitation. Then it did something that made my stomach drop even further. It mimicked me, not fully, but partially. When I swallowed, its throat moved slightly afterward. When I adjusted my grip on the steering wheel, one of its fingers twitched in response on the console, not copying, learning timing, understanding sequence. And that's when I realized the worst truth of all. It wasn't just in the truck with me, it was adapting to what I would do next. And it was getting better at it every second. I made my decision the moment I realized it was learning, not reacting, not attacking, learning. Because anything that improves that fast inside a confined space stops being an encounter. It becomes a process you are trapped inside. My hand slowly slid toward the ignition key. I didn't look at it directly. I didn't want to signal intention. I just moved carefully, pretending every action was accidental, like my body was still undecided. Behind me, the ghoul shifted again, not aggressively, curiously, like it noticed the idea of movement before the movement itself happened. That alone nearly made me stop, but I kept going. The key turned slightly in the ignition, not fully starting the engine yet, just preparing it. A soft mechanical click filled the cabin, and instantly, everything inside the truck went still. Even the breathing behind me stopped for a fraction of a second. That silence was worse than any sound, because it meant I had been noticed in a way that mattered. Then a whisper came right beside my ear, close enough that I felt it more than I heard it. Go? Just that. One word, broken, uncertain, but charged with intent. Like it was testing whether escape was part of the behavior set it needed to understand. My pulse spiked violently. Outside, the snowbanks along the road shimmered faintly in the headlights. The forest beyond looked unchanged, indifferent, vast. The same frozen stretch of rural Rhode Island road inside Glocester that had seemed empty just minutes ago now felt like it was watching from multiple angles at once. I turned the key fully. The engine roared to life, and the moment it did, the weight in the back seat shifted violently forward, not attacking, reacting. The truck rocked slightly as something inside repositioned itself too quickly for the space it was in. A sound came out of the ghoul that wasn't speech this time, a strained, broken noise like frustration forming for the first time. The rearview mirror blurred as I slammed the gear into drive. The tires spun for half a second on packed snow before catching traction, and then I moved forward, fast, headlights slicing through the empty road as the truck surged into motion. But even as I accelerated, I didn't feel relief, because I could still feel it inside the vehicle, not pinned, not lost, just adjusting, adapting to motion now instead of stillness. And from behind me, barely audible over the engine, came the first clear sentence it ever formed without hesitation. We continue. The sentence stayed in the cab long after the ghoul stopped speaking. Not loud, not threatening, just certain. That certainty frightened me more than screaming ever could have. I pressed harder on the accelerator as the truck tore through the frozen back roads outside Glocester. Snow kicked violently behind the tires while dead trees blurred past in the headlights like black skeletal walls closing in from both sides. But something felt wrong almost immediately. The road should have connected back toward the highway within 15 minutes. I had driven this route earlier. I remembered the turns, the intersections, the abandoned barns half buried in snow, yet somehow the same landmarks kept reappearing. A collapsed fence, a broken mailbox leaning sideways, an old church sign barely visible through drifting snow. At first I blamed panic, then exhaustion, but deep down, another realization was already forming. The road wasn't behaving normally anymore. Behind me, the ghoul remained perfectly still. No sudden movements, no attack, only observation. I could see portions of its reflection intermittently in the rearview mirror whenever passing headlights illuminated the cab interior. Those pale eyes fixed on me with unbearable concentration, watching how humans respond to confusion, learning fear through repetition. The truck's heater suddenly died. Cold flooded the cabin instantly. Not ordinary winter cold, this felt deeper, ancient. The kind of cold found underground where sunlight hasn't touched for centuries. Frost began spreading slowly along the inside edges of the windshield, and then the ghoul spoke again, clearer now. Its voice still strained and unnatural, but no longer struggling to shape sentences. You search for leaving. I gripped the steering wheel harder. The road ahead curved sharply through dense woods. Snowbanks rose higher along both sides now, making the world feel narrower, more enclosed. Then my headlights caught something standing ahead. I slammed the brakes instinctively. The truck skidded sideways slightly before stopping. A figure stood motionless in the middle of the road. Human, at least at first glance. An older man wearing a dark winter coat, head lowered, perfectly still beneath falling snow. Relief hit me so fast it almost hurt. Another person, someone normal, someone real. I rolled the truck forward slowly toward him, but the closer I got, the more wrong the proportions became. Too thin, arms too long beneath the sleeves, and when the figure finally lifted its head into the headlights, it had no eyes, only smooth, pale skin stretched tightly across where the sockets should have been. My blood turned to ice. The figure in the road tilted its head exactly the same way the ghoul did. Then from behind me, inside the truck, the real ghoul whispered softly near my ear, "Learning people." And suddenly the figure standing in the road copied my expression perfectly. The thing standing in the road smiled with my expression, not emotionally, mechanically, like it had copied the arrangement of fear on my face without understanding what fear actually was. I stared through the windshield, unable to move, while snow drifted across the headlights in slow white streaks. The figure ahead remained perfectly still in the road, and behind me, the ghoul breathed softly inside the cab. The realization hit me slowly and horribly. It wasn't merely learning language anymore, it was learning people. How they stand, how they react, how they present themselves to each other. I threw the truck into reverse instinctively. The tires spun violently against packed snow before finally catching. The vehicle lurched backward several feet. The figure in the road didn't move, but its posture changed slightly, adjusting, like it was studying how humans respond when frightened. Then the ghoul behind me whispered again, almost thoughtfully, "Closer now." The eyeless figure ahead suddenly took one step forward, not naturally. Its body shifted in disconnected stages, joints aligning in fraction too late behind each movement, like separate parts of it were communicating imperfectly with each other, and yet it was improving. That was the unbearable part. Every second it looked more convincing than before. I slammed the truck back into drive and veered hard around the figure, tires sliding dangerously near the snowbank as I accelerated past it. For one brief second, the headlights swept directly across its face, and I saw something underneath the imitation. Its skin moved wrong, not beneath the surface, through the surface. Like multiple incomplete expressions were trying to settle into a single human face but couldn't fully agree on the arrangement. Then it vanished behind me into darkness. I kept driving, faster now. No concern for ice or visibility anymore, only distance. But deep down I already understood distance wasn't solving the real problem, because the ghoul wasn't following me anymore, it was evolving alongside me. The truck heater remained dead. Frost thickened slowly along the interior glass. My breath came out in pale clouds, while the road ahead twisted endlessly through frozen woods. And then I noticed something impossible. The GPS screen on the dashboard had changed. The map no longer showed roads. only a pale gray shape slowly spreading outward from my truck's position, like frost growing across glass. At the center of it, a small blinking symbol, not a location marker, a figure, standing directly where I was. My stomach tightened. Then another symbol appeared farther down the road ahead, same shape, standing still. Then another behind me, then more, one by one, lining the roads through the forest, watching the truck move between them. And from the back seat came the ghoul's clearest sentence yet. Soon you stop knowing which is real. After the GPS changed, I stopped trusting technology completely. The dashboard clock began skipping minutes irregularly. Radio stations dissolved into fragments of distant voices. Even the headlights seemed weaker somehow, as though the darkness outside the truck had thickened beyond normal night. But the worst part was the road itself. No matter how long I drove, I never reached the highway. The same frozen intersections kept returning, the same abandoned farms, the same leaning utility poles cutting across the snowfields. At one point, I passed the exact same broken road sign 3 separate times within 20 minutes, and every time I saw it again, there was another figure standing nearby, watching the truck. Some looked almost human now, too human. A woman in a winter coat standing beside a mailbox, a teenage boy near a gas station entrance, an old man at the edge of a snow-covered cemetery. But every single one of them shared the same details once the headlights fully reached them. Stillness, white, reflective eyes, and expressions copied slightly wrong, like human emotion reconstructed from observation instead of experience. The ghoul remained silent in the back seat for a long time after that, not asleep, not resting, thinking. I could feel it processing everything around me. Then suddenly it spoke again, quietly. "You fear copies." I didn't answer. The road ahead curved sharply around a wooded hill before opening toward a small town center buried beneath snow and darkness. At first, relief hit me hard. Buildings, streetlights, civilization. Finally. But the closer I got, the more unsettling the place became. Nothing moved, no traffic, no footprints, no smoke from chimneys despite the brutal cold. The town looked frozen in the middle of existence itself. I slowed the truck carefully as I rolled past dark storefronts in what appeared to be an isolated section near Glocester, and then I realized why the silence felt so wrong. People were there, standing inside the buildings, motionless figures behind windows, dozens of them, watching the road, watching my truck pass through town. None of them moved naturally. Some stood still. Others held expressions that never shifted. One woman near a diner window smiled without blinking as snow accumulated on the outside glass between us. Then my headlights swept across another storefront, and my stomach dropped instantly. Inside stood a copy of me, not exact, not perfect, but horrifyingly close. Same coat, same posture, same terrified expression. The imitation tilted its head satisfaction. Now learning you. The copy inside the storefront kept staring at me as the truck rolled past. Its face looked almost perfect now, too perfect. That's what made it unbearable. Real human expressions shift constantly in tiny, unconscious ways, muscles tightening, eyes refocusing, breaths altering posture. But the imitation behind the glass held my fear in a frozen state, like it had selected one emotional frame and decided that was what a person was supposed to look like. And as I drove farther into the silent town, I began seeing more of them. Not identical copies of me, copies of everyone. Figures behind diner counters, people seated motionless inside parked cars. Shapes standing near snow-covered porches watching the road without blinking. The goal wasn't simply learning individuals anymore, it was reconstructing society from observation. That realization hollowed something inside me because it meant I wasn't trapped with a predator. I was trapped with an intelligence trying to understand human existence by imitation alone. And imitation without understanding eventually becomes distortion. The truck moved slowly through the center of town. I barely pressed the accelerator anymore. Some instinct warned me that speed no longer mattered. The town itself felt detached from ordinary geography, like I had crossed into a place assembled from memory instead of reality. Then I noticed movement ahead. A group of people stood in the middle of the road beneath a flickering street light, 5 figures, perfectly still. As my headlights reached them, they all turned toward the truck at the exact same moment. Synchronized. Wrong. Every one of them wore copied human expressions slightly out of alignment with the situation. One smiled too widely, another appeared terrified despite standing motionless. A third blinked repeatedly without changing facial expression at all. And all of them had those same reflective white eyes. The ghoul behind me leaned forward slowly between the seats, close enough now that I could hear the wet sound of breathing beside my ear again. Then it spoke with frightening clarity. People make places. I stared ahead at the figures blocking the road. Snow drifted around them silently. None moved aside. Then the ghoul continued. So I learned people and places stay. That sentence changed everything because suddenly I understood what this thing truly was. Not an animal, not a cryptid hiding in New England forests. Something far older and far stranger. A presence that survived by reconstructing environments through imitation. A thing that studies humanity until it can build spaces convincing enough for people to lose their ability to distinguish reality from reproduction. And the most horrifying part, it was improving rapidly. The town no longer looked obviously wrong anymore. The storefronts felt unnatural. The copied people moved more smoothly. Even the atmosphere itself had become believable enough that part of my brain was beginning to accept it as normal. That's when true fear finally arrived. Not fear of dying, fear that if I stayed long enough, I would eventually stop noticing the differences too. I don't fully remember how I left the town. That's the truth that still bothers the most. Not because I blacked out, because the transition itself feels missing. One moment I was driving slowly through streets filled with copied people beneath falling snow, and the next I was parked alone beside a frozen road and near dawn. Engine dead, truck covered in ice, no town, no storefronts, no figures in the road, just pale morning light spreading weakly through the forests outside Glocester. At first I convinced myself exhaustion had fractured my projection, my perception, that maybe hypothermia, stress, and isolation had distorted reality into something impossible. Then I looked in the backseat. The upholstery was soaked, not with snow, with muddy water. Long, pale fingerprints stretched across the inside windows from near the passenger side of the glass behind my seat. And resting in the center of the back seat was my camera. I knew immediately I hadn't left it there, because the last time I remembered touching it was hours earlier near the first snowbank. My hands shook as I picked it up. The battery should have been dead from the cold. Instead, the screen flickered on instantly. There was only one photo stored on the memory card. One. I opened it slowly and my entire body went numb. The image showed my truck parked in the middle of the silent town from above, as if photographed from a second-story window. Snow falling, headlights glowing, figures standing all around the vehicle watching it, dozens of them, copies, imitations, some human, some incomplete, and standing directly beside the driver's side door was another version of me, perfectly still, looking up toward whoever had taken the photograph. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the timestamp, because according to the camera, the photo had been taken while I was still inside the truck driving through the town, which meant one impossible thing had to be true. Something else had already stepped outside wearing my shape. I never returned to Rhode Island after that winter, never went back near the forests around Glocester. But sometimes late at night, when roads are empty and snow starts falling hard enough to erase the edges of the world, I still think about what the ghoul said. People make places. And I can't stop wondering whether that town was ever abandoned at all, or whether the copies simply became convincing enough that nobody notices they were replaced.